But before I do that, I want to just say, my grandparents, my mother's parents, the ones that are always visited in Berlin, couldn't make it out. They were in Berlin, and in 1942, in August, they were taken on a transport of 1,884 Jews to Riga, and only now do I know what happened to them. The train got to Riga, the Jews were taken out, marched to an area, machine gunned into and dumped into a mass grave. So when I had the opportunity, the word is sponsored. I sponsored two of these things. They're called, in German, Stolpersteine, translated stumbling stones. And they are about a 4 by 4 inch and sit buried in the sidewalk in front of the building. And the idea is that when you walk along, you feel something underfoot that feels different. You look down, and you get this tight little history of Julius Liebmann and Margareta Liebmann, and in other buildings, other locations, other people, so that they have some kind of memory. So these is a memorial. Well, the reason that I go talking here and in schools, mostly in schools, is this kid. Because this child symbolizes 1.5 million Jewish children that were murdered. 1.5 million children. And I think it's easier to understand the problem if you focus on one child. And so I think Hansi might have grown up to be a doctor or an accountant or who knows what. He would have added something to the world and would have spoken out maybe about his circumstances. Didn't do it. So I tried to do it. That's one of the reasons. And the other reason is that I'm very, very concerned about the epidemic of bullying. In schools, I've yet to go to a school where there isn't a bullying problem. And I make an effort to connect the story of the German Jews who were victimized because they were different, and there were people watching all the time. There were always people there looking. You know, they were sometimes hiding behind their curtains, but sometimes they're just out on the street. When they marched hundreds of men to the train stations, there were people on the sidewalk watching. And I see this very much like what's going on in the classroom. Some kid is different. Somebody goes after that kid, and the others all know it. There's not a bully that isn't known by everybody. It's so sad. But of course, not everyone here is in school. And so I have another thing that I'm going to ask or suggest. If you have the experience of being with other people and someone starts to say something unkind about any group, whatever that group may be, the challenge is to say, you know, that comment really bothers me. I wonder if you would stop that. Because it's the same issue as we're talking about in the school. So anyway, that's why I do all of this. And I think it's worth my time doing it. And thank you for inviting me here. Welcome any question. I'll try to answer whatever you ask, and if I don't know it, I will say so. Thank you. You get the first question.
Why did they want that baby?
The Nazis
Could you repeat the question?
children.
What was the question? Why did they want the baby?
I'm sorry. I'll repeat the question. The Nazis always took the children that came in these cattle cars. Immediately, they were gone, murdered. And the reason is because we know that children are, excuse my saying it, they're essentially useless. They eat, they play, they get into trouble, and then they go back to sleep again. And if you're running a concentration camp, as I say, a slave labor camp, they're useless. So from a Nazi mentality point of view, they were needing to be gotten rid of. I don't think it has anything to do with stopping the growth of the Jewish people, because they were going to destroy almost all of the people. They would have murdered almost all of the people that came to the camp anyway. Yes.
So I'm having trouble with the U.S. reaction. That I know that the U.S. agreed to take at maximum 1,000 people to this place in upstate New York that very few people actually know about, and it's in Oswego, called Safe Haven. But and they were hand-selected with strict requirements of who was able to come. But besides that, our borders were closed as well. And I guess I hope, obviously, it would never happen again here. But we're hearing it. But what about like in England? Like what happened?
You want me to say something about the United States?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, it begins with St. Louis. The sort of an emblematic event. It begins there. The captain of the St. Louis sails the ship past the Florida coast, radios, and says, "Please, may we land and let these people off?" And the answer is no. The next thing that happens is that, I'm sort of jumping around a little bit. Jonas Korczak, I'm missing a name here now. A Polish hero who went, representing the Polish government in exile, went back to Poland, saw the camps, met with Churchill, met with Roosevelt, and President Roosevelt heard everything and could have acted and taken steps, didn't. Next thing in time is the bombing. The British and American air forces were penetrating further and further into Europe, and they were actually flying over Auschwitz. And the reason they were there is there was a synthetic rubber factory attached to the camp, and they wanted to put it out of commission. They could have easily dropped a bomb or two on the switch yards or on the crematoria. They didn't. They said it was not a priority for them. And then finally, I'll say that the American government, throughout the Nazi times in the 30s never filled the quota that they had for Jews, for Germans coming to the United States. The quota for Germans coming to the U.S. was 27,500 per year. They never filled the quota. There was we know there was a State Department that was run by people who had very strong anti-Semitic beliefs. They saw the opportunity, when they could do it, they would keep Jewish people locked down in places rather than granting them a chance to come to the U.S. So, is that enough of that? I'm sorry, this is my country and I love it, but I think it needs to be better. So, I mean, that's part of what I'm trying to say.
We haven't learned anything, though.
No, because we're doing it to the Muslims.
Go ahead.
I wrote down a question, and it concerned me how you were saying in one of the cards that women had a name of Sarah and men had a name of Israel. But how did the Germans find out who was Jewish and not during when the Holocaust started?
The question is, how did the German government know who was Jewish? Same way they knew where people lived. You were required to fill out tax forms, and on the tax forms, unlike in this country where there are no questions regarding religion, in Germany they always ask about religion. And I can explain why that, if I have time, I can talk about why that is so. It's actually a perfectly harmless thing, but you can use the information that you've gathered to go after Mrs. Cohen or Mrs. Schneiderman and make sure that they put Sarah on the documents.
Also, another question that was connected to it. If it was possible, how could we stop from preventing another incident like this happening?
I think a good answer to this would require a lot of thought and the amount of time we don't have. It's what everyone keeps worrying about. But, I think I can't do it.